My next guest is proof that sometimes life's biggest pivots can lead to your greatest purpose. Francesca Weems has gone from sports, broadcasting to global PR leadership to now building her own consultancy focused on fearless communication and helping people lead with confidence and clarity. Her journey is one that I feel like is of resilience, reinvention, and betting on yourself. And today we're talking about what it really takes to pivot with purpose. Fran, welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. And I love the intro, Pivot with Purpose. Let's get into it.
Let's dive right in. Well, Fran, okay, so you've had multiple careers, broadcaster, global PR executive, and now a founder. I kind of want to get into each and want to know like what made each pivot possible.
Well, a lot of these pivots happened as a result of disruptions. And I think that's kind of the point of this entire conversation is that life isn't always going to be linear. I recently spoke to graduates that are part of Cal State East Bay's Poli-Sci program, and they're really entering into a very tough market right now. It reminds me a lot of when I came out of undergrad in 2009. And so the same concept that I've talked to them about in terms of just understanding you might need to get a little creative until you get an opportunity, really lean into your skill set to help the local community better understand how policy impacts them at a local level, potentially a national level, potentially an international level. But if the job that you ultimately coveted isn't available in this market, you kind of have to move with it. And so that's been my entire life story. I grew up in foster care, I grew up homeless, and then when I graduated from high school, I was able to get a full academic ride to UC Berkeley and then kind of go on my way on that front. But to your point, in each of these kind of sectors, television had a really a disruption on that front, moved into PR. Actually, had only planned to be in this industry for about a year. I was only going to test it out. I was burnt out and I was like, let me see if I'm going to stick this out or go right back to television. Fell in love with communications. I liked the work-life balance. I thought overall it was just better for everything happening in my life. And it allowed me to still flex my communication skills in a different way, storytelling on behalf of companies. Then, to your point, moved into a global agency. That role was impacted last year, and then I launched my own consultancy. So it's been a period of shifts that have happened in my life. And then in that moment, it's pushing me into something else and really being able to leverage the skills that I built up in my previous industry and making sure I'm able to continue to use them.
Well, Fran, hearing your story, one, I'm so proud of you. All the different shifts and pivots and things you've had to navigate throughout your life. And you've done it from what it appears on the outside seamlessly. So I want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
But I want to know for so many people that are trying to figure out like when, for you, beyond disruption, was there a sign, a nagging feeling in your spirit where you said, okay, now is the time, even if you felt like you weren't ready to make the jump?
Well, in my spirit, I do think it's important that you always are prepared in case something does happen to your role. And we're seeing a lot of companies go through massive reorganizations, artificial intelligence taking up some of the roles, but also creating new roles, hopefully in the future. And so it's important and imperative for everyone to make sure that they're looking around the corner and thinking about what their potential next steps could be if their roles are disrupted. And for me, this is the first time I've ever been an entrepreneur. I'm not even a full year in. I've learned so much in this journey. And I think this will help me no matter what. Even if I decide to return to corporate America and be more of an entrepreneur, having the skill sets to be able to eat what you kill, to be able to understand how business works, go out and get your own clients is really imperative. I feel like no matter your industry. So, frankly, a lot of these pivots were not because I had the foresight, but if nothing else, growing up in foster care and homelessness has taught me that resilience is within me. I did ask God in 2026 for me not to be a part of his strongest soldier squad. And so I would like that not to be my testimony into 2026, because that was what it was in 2025. But I do know one thing that he's built in me is the ability to make it through tough times. And I think that's imperative for everybody to have. So I didn't always have the foresight. Some things shifted and you just kind of roll with it. But I do know I'm talented. I know that I'm a team player and I know that people really enjoy working with me. And so I hope that that continues to extend itself, whether that is, again, continuing to build my consultancy or eventually return to in-house.
I love that. I want to dive into your consultancy, but I want to ask for maybe somebody who's watching this and they feel like, oh, I feel seen, I feel heard. If someone is facing a moment of pivoting, what advice would you have for them to stay encouraged and not be afraid? Because it can be a very scary thing.
It is like you said to remain encouraged, to lean on whatever they feel is the source that gets them through stuff. So for me, I have my kind of 5 F's. So faith, fitness, family, friends, and food. That is what carries me through. I know when I'm eating terribly, that means I might be going through some stuff. I'm just inhaling junk and sweets back to back to back. That means I'm not getting the fiber I need. And so I need to make some adjustments on that front. Um, Fitness has been critical to my mental health. I ran track at UC Berkeley. I've been an athlete my entire life, and I'm going to continue to really lean into my fitness to feel good. If you feel good, you often will be able to execute well in your day-to-day job. Really leaning on, again, your friends and family to be your sources, particularly if you're feeling down, to bounce ideas. And then again, the faith piece, and that not may not be everybody's source, but whatever you pull from to go to that, that'll really help carry you through. Those are the things that I've leaned on, and that's what I'd recommend others if they're trying to figure out their next steps. Your network is also really important too, and that saying "your network is your net worth" is so incredibly important. The opportunities that I have had on this with my entrepreneurship endeavors have been in large part because of the network. Once people found out I was on the market, they reached out and they said, "Hey, Fran, like we have this startup, we have this other thing happening. We'd love to bring you in for this project. We'd love to have you work on X, Y, Z." But if they didn't actually know me, if they hadn't seen my work, it wouldn't have been an opportunity to work with them. So you never know who's in your either direct network or who's an extension of the network you already have. It could be two people removed from you, but you need to make sure that you're out there having conversations, trying to get through the blockade of AI. You can't just sit at home all day. You have to make sure that you're actually going to events and functions to be able to meet humans who have the capacity and opportunities to be able to bring you on board full time, part time, or fractional.
See, I love that. I love that you dive into all of those pillars to keep yourself encouraged and well adjusted. Entrepreneurship, I think it's such an exciting thing. So, can you tell me about the Fran Effect? Who do you help, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so the Fran Effect is a fearless communications consultancy, and I work with leaders who speak truth to power. So I work across media relations because I used to be a journalist for a number of years. That was my first profession, as we talked about. I also work with executive visibility platforms that could be anywhere from your social media to awards to the speaking circuit, as well as media relations. I also help with diversity, equity, inclusion, and multicultural comms. I have a deep expertise in that area. That was my former role as director of DE&I. So I know how to, again, reach communities where they are, make sure that we're crafting messages to, connect with the communities on the platforms in which they're receiving information. So those are kind of my core tenets of what I work on. And so I work with startups, I work with faith organizations, I work with civil rights organizations and attorneys. So it spans the gamut as well as large organizations. So large, small, medium, all are welcome as long as they're here to speak to things that are real. I'm really great at taking kind of complex messages and distilling them to a broader audience. As you know, Reyna, working in local television, I think sometimes we get really caught up in the jargon, and it doesn't mean that you can't use big words. I'm an advocate for being astute and as smart as possible. I'm here for the educational piece of things. However, sometimes when you're using words that aren't, more inclusive to more people, your message gets lost. And so I help people really streamline things, get to the heart of what's important, and get it out the door.
Yeah, well, I love all of that. And it seems like, just hearing about your journey and your pivot, everything that you learned along the way has been so vital to your success and who you are. I just want to give you that gem and pour into you. You've done such a fabulous job. If people are watching, what is one thing they can start doing right now to show up more powerfully in their careers and their lives and be prepared if they need to pivot?
Well, we'll start with the first piece around fearlessness and courageousness. I feel like everybody's barometer is not going to be the same, and that's okay. Maybe you push yourself to be 10% more fearless in your next conversation. I got the nickname in corporate America of Fearless Fran, which is why my tagline, Fearlessness Starts Here, is part of my brand because we are not really seeing a lot of fearless and courageous leaders. If we're just looking around what's happening in the world, to me, that's a large part of why we are in the situation that we are. We've been a lot of passive. We've been really appeasing things that should not be happening on an international, on a national, and a local level. And so it behooves everyone to speak up, to use their voice, and make sure they're pushing back against things that do not that do a disservice to the broader public. That could be at your job, etc. So that would be my first thing to encourage people to lift up your voice. If you see stuff that's wrong, that's happening in your community, that's happening in the workplace, say something. And again, everybody's barometer, you may not be fearless Fran at the office, but at least if you're pushing yourself 10% each time, this time I raised my hand. This time I said, I don't think that's the way we could characterize that. That was a big moment for you in that time and space. That'd be my first thing. The second thing around the pivot is just like I was saying earlier, to make sure that you're prepared no matter what. If you have a safe 9 to 5 job, I love that for you. I don't know if there's any really safe jobs right now, but if you're in an industry that is not as disrupted as some others, and you've been in your career and this job for 20 plus years, it feels pretty good. I love that for you, but you should still always make sure that if something happens, you have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G. And so I'm telling people to make sure they understand entrepreneurship, that if their role was disrupted, if they wanted to become a consultant, do they have 5 or 10 people that they could call immediately to stand up work? And you should starting to put those things in place even before something happens to just dip your toe. Not all jobs allow you to be entrepreneurs on the job, so make sure you check your employee handbook. Don't say Fran got you fired, right? I want to make sure if your job doesn't allow you to have a second gig, no worries. But a lot of jobs, they understand that you might have something on the side, you might have a passion project, you start off as a nonprofit. So maybe you're not even getting paid, but you're at least putting the pillars in place should you need to stand it up and activate it so that you're prepared should something happen. I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship. I think it's a muscle everyone should stretch, but I'm not out here saying everybody should be entrepreneurs. I think in my case, and I've been very transparent, I was pushed into this and kind of just leaning into it. When God pushes you in a direction, you lean into it, you learn from what's happening, and you try to grow as a result of what has happened. But I'm here for my corporate baddies. I don't think everybody needs to be out in these entrepreneurship streets. And as Black women, we're underfunded. Less than 1% of all venture capital go to women of color, even less, obviously, to Black women. So we're not funded at the pace to actually have sustainable businesses. And so that's why I'm really cautious about pushing Black women to entrepreneurship. You have to make sure the finances match up also with your situation. Are you married? Do you have kids? Do you have the balance? Do you own a home? All these things need to be taken into account before you enter into this arena, but it can be a bridge for something if you're looking to get back to a 9 to 5 as well.
Well, friend, that was very powerful. You have, in my opinion, perfected the pivot, and you're encouraging others to consider and think about the role to potentially doing the same within reason. So
Right.
that's so important. If people want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Franny Fries. They can also find me on LinkedIn under my name, Francesca Weems, as well as my website, thefraneffect.com. So 3 different channels. Please reach out. I'd love to connect with you. If you have projects that you think could leverage my expertise, I'd welcome it. And thank you for having me, Reyna.
And Francesca, thank you for joining us today. And certainly, if you do have any questions, reach out to her. And I appreciate you joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm really proud of you as well.
Well, it's a mutual being proud of one another. So thank you again for joining me, and I'll talk to you later, friend.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.